Chapter 7, Portfolios and Reflection. Overview. Portfolios are increasingly popular in both undergraduate and postgraduate medical education. Chances are that as a medical student, junior doctor, and specialist, you will be required to keep a portfolio up to date and you will be assessed on that portfolio. As you will see in this chapter, portfolios are more than just collections of information. They include reflections and often formal reflective commentaries. Students sometimes struggle with the concept of reflection, so we have added a brief section introducing a model for practical reflection. Introduction. Different institutions use portfolios for different purposes and in different formats. So, not surprisingly, there is often quite a bit of confusion as to what a portfolio is and more than a little resentment and negative feelings about them. This section aims to clear up some of the mysteries around portfolios and to help you see how to make a portfolio work in your favor. Because of the wide variety in formats of portfolios, we will try and keep most of the advice as generic as possible, with some specific examples to show you how you might apply this advice to your situation. As with the other chapters in this book, you will need to actively engage with the content in order to benefit. What is a portfolio? A portfolio is a personal collection of information relating to your professional development. More than just containing a record of facts, it is a dynamic and changing document that records and directs your reflections and progress as a medical student and beyond. What is a portfolio useful for? From your personal perspective, portfolios are useful for collecting, reflecting, and planning. From the perspective of those above you, portfolios are also used for assessing and making judgments. Imagine that at the start of medical school you buy a big folder and as a front sheet you list the General Medical Council's duties of a doctor. You buy one of those 12-piece dividers so that you have a section for each of the GMC's 6 main categories. In each of the 6 sections you keep information that you gather under that heading. Under provide a good standard of practice and care, for example, you might keep a record of your exam results. Under protect and promote the health of patients and the public, you might keep a record of some health promotion teaching that you went to in the first year and the community health project that you completed in the third year. Imagine that at finals the GMC asks you to demonstrate that you have reached the criteria required for graduation. And you get out your folder and show them that you can demonstrate that you fulfill all the duties of a doctor already. Your discussions with the GMC would be very easy. Portfolios tend to be more than a collection of evidence. They tend to include reflections too. Perhaps you will use the spare 6 sections in your folder to add a commentary or ongoing reflection on the evidence that you submit. What, for example, did you learn from the health promotion teaching that you went to in the first year? In what way will it change your practice? How will you know? What did your last set of exam results tell you? What do you need to do as a result? How will you know that you have made the improvements that you decided on? You might decide not only to include glowing examples under each of the sections, but also some things that don't go so well. Perhaps in your first year you are disciplined for plagiarism and nearly lose your place in medical school. You might include this under the honesty section and write a reflective commentary on what you learned from the whole experience. Writing a reflective log will help you think about this in a structured way. Box 7.1 The duties of a doctor registered with the General Medical Council. Patients must be able to trust doctors with their lives and health. To justify that trust, you must show respect for human life, and you must make the care of your patient your first concern. Protect and promote the health of patients and the public. Provide a good standard of practice and care. Keep your professional knowledge and skills up to date. Recognize and work within the limits of your competence. Work with colleagues in the ways that best serve patients' interests. Treat patients as individuals and respect their dignity. Treat patients politely and considerately. Respect patients' right to confidentiality. Work in partnership with patients. Listen to patients and respond to their concerns and preferences. Give patients the information they want or need in a way they can understand. Respect patients' right to reach decisions with you about their treatment and care. Support patients in caring for themselves to improve and maintain their health. Be honest and open and act with integrity. Act without delay if you have good reason to believe that you or a colleague may be putting patients at risk. Never discriminate unfairly against patients or colleagues. Never abuse your patient's trust in you or the public's trust in the profession. You are personally accountable for your professional practice and must always be prepared to justify your decisions and actions. By way of helping you plan, imagine that you look through your folder on a regular basis and you decide that under keep your professional knowledge and skills up to date, you cross-reference with the list of skills in one of the GMC's other documents. Tomorrow's doctors, and you realize that although they list competence in passing a urethral catheter as a core skill requirement for a new doctor, you haven't done any. You therefore find an opportunity to practice in the skills lab and then arrange to go out on the wards with the urology nurse practitioner, watch him or her in action, and then give it a go on a suitably consenting patient. You keep practicing until you are competent and confident. Your portfolio has helped identify a weakness and has helped you plan to address it. A lot of the learning that you will do in medical school will be through reflections on your interactions with patients in clinical settings. Did things go as expected or not? Why? What are the strengths and weaknesses of your communication with the patient? Did you miss a key sign on clinical examination? Perhaps you felt that you had failed to build rapport with the patient. A reflective commentary in your portfolio allows you to deconstruct what happened and plan what you might do differently next time, even stimulate you to look some things up. A portfolio is therefore clearly useful to you in terms of collecting evidence, reflecting on and learning from it, and in terms of helping you plan how to fill any gaps in your knowledge or skills. The use of portfolios as an assessment tool is, however, more controversial. Portfolios can clearly be assessed on the quantity and range of evidence that you have collected, but also they can be assessed in terms of the reflections that you have made. Do you look like someone who really thinks about what happens and really tries to learn from it? The real secret of portfolios is to make the portfolio your own. Initially, ignore what everyone else tells you and spend some time thinking about what you want a portfolio for, what will be the focus for you, how would it look, what would be the headings, how often would you look at it. Only after you have an idea of the answers should you go back and look at what the school is asking you to do. Work toward a compromise, something that you own and want that will also do what the school wants for you too. The basic structure of a portfolio. There are 1,000 different variations on portfolio, but depending who you speak to, either all or most have a similar structure. All have a list of headings or topics which might be called goals or outcomes. These might be as specific as a list of clinical skills that you need to master, or as open-ended as the GMC duties of a doctor in the example above. They might be as impersonal as something your school has set for you, or as personal as something from your heart. Perhaps one of your goals might relate to enjoying your social life more. This list of goals or outcomes is linked to evidence that you collect, which will reside in folders or sections or under headings. You will probably start with a little evidence from secondary school, perhaps some certificates and exam results, and will build up from there. Of course, one piece of evidence may relate to several goals, so there is usually some indexing or cross-referencing. For example, you may have two goals, one relating to developing a broad anatomy knowledge, the other relating to pursuing a career as a surgeon. Your high mark in a surgical anatomy exam might cross-reference to both goals. In addition to the evidence, you will need to write some sort of reflective commentary on the evidence. This might include reflection on the evidence itself, on how this evidence moves you closer to fulfilling your goals or both. These reflections may generate an action plan for change. The concept of reflection is often a puzzle to medical students. Later in this chapter, we cover it in more depth. Special cases, e-portfolios. Paper-based portfolios are reasonably easy to imagine. A folder with sections containing goals, evidence, and reflections. E-portfolios can be more tricky to visualize, but still contain the same structure. An electronic or web-based portfolio has some advantages. It is easy for storage, and if you choose a web-based version, it can be accessible from anywhere in the world. And you can even have different levels of access. You might allow your tutor to see some parts, but perhaps not some of your more personal reflections. For these reasons, in addition to the trend factor, the use of e-portfolios is rapidly expanding in medical schools and beyond it into postgraduate education. It is my thing, and as I'm webmaster for a student society, I thought I had to have an online portfolio, and I found a really good one that was free too. One of my tutors needed some help navigating it, but when I had sat with him and showed him how it works, he thought it was fantastic. Far up, fourth year medical student. You should note some cautions before leaping wholeheartedly into a paper-free portfolio. Importantly, you should consider the longevity of the portfolio. If your medical school are offering you an e-portfolio, what will happen when you graduate? Will you be able to keep the data and access to it? Imagine that you suddenly have 5 or 6 years worth of information, all cross-referenced in some nice multidimensional way, not designed to print out. And you have to leave it all behind and try and translate it to some kind of written one or some other electronic version when you leave medical school. You might also think about how others will access your portfolio and if there might be some online access or a useful way of printing out relevant parts. Will it be private and secure enough to keep pranksters away and yet allow access to those you want? Goals, evidence, reflective commentary, action plan, structure of a portfolio. The structure of the portfolio is much more open for innovation if all the information is electronic, but be aware that it can rapidly become quite complex and difficult to navigate. You will need to spend time on a regular basis reviewing the structure and adjusting it as necessary. Remember that you will still get a lot of evidence in hard copy form, certificates, and so forth. You can perhaps scan these in if you have access to a scanner, but remember that if it is a high stakes portfolio, you will need to keep the original documents somewhere safe too. This is not to say anything against online portfolios, but rather to encourage you to think about what you want out of the portfolio and how you should structure it before you spend considerable time, effort, and perhaps money on something that turns out not to be as useful as you had imagined. Perhaps the most exciting aspect of e-portfolios is where they will go next. Integration into wikis, blogs, social networking sites, directly linking to journals and search engines, and so on. The next few years will be exciting, and you might be a pioneer. Be prepared to experiment and share what works and especially what doesn't. Making a portfolio work for you. There are only 2 rules for making a portfolio useful. You should feel complete ownership of your portfolio and you should review it regularly. The portfolio should be yours and yours alone, and you should design it and build it and maintain it for your own benefit. Perhaps you will start one now using goals that you have generated from this book. One goal might be to develop more effective study skills. You might write a reflective commentary considering how broad and deep your toolkit of study skills currently is and where you want to develop over the next year. Following on from that, you might generate a plan for the next year to practice using keywords and concept maps for your learning for 3 months, to attend a study skills workshop at your university, and to start a study group with some colleagues from medical school. In a couple of months, you can see how far you are down that line, if you have collected any evidence, and if it demonstrates progress. You are using this portfolio to drive your own progress. My portfolio is mine. I love it. I spent time making it beautiful and I really enjoy just looking through it. It shows me a map of where I have been and where I am going. Meena, third-year medical student. It seems that most humans tend to run rather close to deadlines. Non-urgent things are put to the bottom of the pile, whereas more urgent things always get put on top. The temptation will be to neglect your portfolio, and you may need to make particular effort not to. Perhaps you could timetable some time every week or fortnight just to file evidence. Flick through it, consider where you are in moving towards your goals, what you have learned from the evidence, and how you are progressing. You might even write down a paragraph of your thoughts, and sometimes you might realize that you need to change direction. Regular review will mean that your portfolio is always current, always relevant, and that it is alive. Doing a little often will ensure that if anyone wants to see your portfolio, or if you need to dip into it to produce some evidence, no additional effort will be required. Many of your peers will see portfolios as a nuisance. They will not contribute regularly to them, and they will frantically try and complete 12 months worth of information the night before a portfolio review. Their reflections will be largely fictitious, and they will moan about what a pointless chore portfolios are. They are right. Their portfolio will be pointless. Make sure that yours isn't. Assessment of portfolios. We have already mentioned that there are different approaches to assessing portfolios. Some institutions just require that a portfolio is kept. Others mark on the collection of evidence, perhaps the quantity or the breadth. These assessments are relatively easy to design and mark. Some medical schools also mark on the quality of the reflective commentaries. The hope is that this will drive students to reflect often and result in graduates who can really deconstruct experiences and learn from them. Unfortunately, it also drives some students to produce outstanding works of reflective fiction. If your school marks on the quality of the reflective commentary, it is important to know that they are doing this to encourage you to reflect often. They will be looking for honest accounts, not only of how great you are, but also of where things have gone wrong, what you have learned from these, how you are planning to improve. If you see the portfolio as belonging to you and for your benefit, then what is the point of writing fiction, of cheating yourself? Reflection. What is reflection? Much has been written about reflection, and there are many good books available that examine it in depth. The purpose of this section is to give you an overview and some simple tools to get you started with it quickly. Our minds have two positions, looking out and looking in. Reflection is the looking in, a deep thinking technique that allows us to plan for or analyze events that have already happened and to extract maximum learning from them, a sort of re-evaluation of experience. Reflection helps to develop an extra level of consciousness or a third eye, which allows us to become more aware of our own part of the self in any given situation. Reflective skills are an important part of personal and professional development for all healthcare professionals, and some authors argue that it is the main way we effectively learn from experience as adults. Reflecting honestly upon how you learned something or how a particular event has gone is a way of deconstructing experiences and learning from them, a way of learning for real understanding. Reflection was boring until I realized it was just another way of thinking about what I do and making thinking work for me. Gavin, third year student, we have already thought about the importance of finding out about your preferred personal learning styles in order to become an effective learner. Developing reflective skills will also help you to develop your third eye and give you the means to learn from all life events, so that everything is useful and valuable experiences are never wasted. Some people are natural reflectors. They think about events that have happened, both good and bad, and try to work out what went well, what didn't, and what their own part in each may have been. For a lot of us, however, these skills do not come naturally, and we have to work at them and actively implement them into our everyday life. Like all new learning skills, it takes a few weeks or months to become comfortable with them, but eventually they become part of what we are and second nature. The reflective cycle. To get started or consolidate your reflective skills, it may be helpful to have a practical model as shown in Figure 7.1. This can be used as a way of guiding reflection about any event. But as an example of how reflection can be used to think about how you learn, we have mapped a learning experience onto the cycle. Description: what happened? I went to a 1 hour lecture on the functions of the cranial nerves along with my whole ear. I came away at the end of it having learned almost nothing and with confused and inadequate notes. There were not enough handouts for everyone, and so I didn't even have these to fall back on. The whole lecture seemed like a waste of time for me. Figure 7.1: the reflective cycle. Description: what happened. Feelings: what were you thinking and feeling. Evaluation: what was good and bad about the experience. Analysis: what sense can you make of the situation. Conclusion: what else could you have done. Action plan: if it arose again, what would you do. Feelings: what were you thinking and feeling. Even before the lecture, some of my friends told me that cranial nerves are difficult to learn and yet always come up in exams. The lecturer also began the lecture by saying that this was a difficult subject and that people often fail it in exams. I felt nervous and apprehensive from the beginning, and my confidence was low. I don't like lectures at the best of times and often find my mind wanders off and that I don't take good notes. I went home at the end feeling fed up and useless. Evaluation: what was good and bad about the experience. Lots of bad things, like I still don't know about cranial nerves and probably would fail any exam about them, and that I find lectures so difficult. The good thing is that most of the others also find cranial nerves difficult, so I am not alone. Analysis: what sense can you make of the situation? I know that cranial nerves are important to know about and that I do need to understand them. I need to find a way of learning about them that is right for me. I think that my friends and the lecturer saying that they were difficult had a big influence on my learning and confidence in the lecture. I am more worried about failing exams than learning about cranial nerves. Conclusion: what else could you have done? I could have prepared for the lecture in advance so that the concepts were not new to me and perhaps made a diagram that could have been fleshed out during the lecture as a way of organizing my notes. I think this would have made me more confident. I am going to sit near the front next time, as it is too easy to let my mind wander when I sit at the back with the other dreamers. I could try recording the lecture to listen to later at home with my notes. Action plan: if it arose again, what would you do? It will arise again as lectures happen frequently. I am determined to be in control in the future and not be influenced by what others say. Friends and lecturers have their own motivations and agendas. I also want to discuss lectures in a group to make sure I understand everything and hear what other people have to say. My action plan: prepare for lectures to get a head start. Prepare a rough diagram to shape my notes. Be aware of my own feelings and how these can impede my learning. Sit near the front. Record the lecture. Consolidate my learning in a group. Many people reflect only on the negative or poor experiences, but it is important to reflect on the positive as well. Try applying the reflective cycle to a successful learning experience. Establishing what went well and your part in it will be as valuable as what went wrong. The reflective cycle can be applied to any situation, professional or private, to help analyze what happened, why, and what you felt about it. Try applying it to a situation with friends or family or a patient encounter. It is very adaptable. I find it hard to think about and reflect on difficult times when things have gone wrong because it's like going through the pain again. I do know though that I learn a lot from doing it. Femi, fourth year student. Reflection as a preparation. Reflection can be used as a preparation for learning or for any event. Consider the following scenario. You are about to go on a new GP placement tomorrow. You probably have some ideas about what it will be like, particularly as you are a patient registered at a GP practice yourself. It is useful to think about these ideas and thoughts in preparation for the visit. Reflect upon these questions. What kind of patients do you think you will be meeting? What might be the main challenges to communicating with them? What common health problems might they present with? Will you be sitting in with the GP or talking to patients on your own? Will you be examining any patients? How do you feel about the placement? Which other healthcare professionals will you be working with? How will you record your learning? Your experience of being a patient will influence how you feel about the GP placement, and it will be important to reflect on this. This process may help you to think of strategies for making the placement run smoothly so that it is a rich learning opportunity. After the placement, apply the reflective cycle model to analyze how things went and consolidate your learning. Solo or group reflection. People find different types of reflection helpful. Once it becomes part of your normal routine, you may find you naturally reflect at certain times of the day, for example, on the bus or in the shower. To begin with, though, you may need to set aside regular times each day to get into the habit. Professor Parveen Kumar spends 15 minutes each night writing down a reflective log on what she has learned that day. What better role model could you follow? Solo. Some people find writing the best way to reflect and a good way of recording their thoughts so that they are not lost. Throughout history, people have kept diaries, and these are really just informal reflective journals. A reflective journal can be helpful in returning to a subject to see if things have changed or as a reminder of events or experiences. Written reflection is also a valuable part of any personal and professional development portfolio and can be used to illustrate points or issues you are writing about. Sometimes rereading a reflective journal can show how much progress you have made or how similar some experiences have been or the pattern is emerging. Rereading these after a period of years has elapsed is really interesting, and some authors have even used these as a basis for an autobiography. Group. Reflecting in a group can be a fascinating way of deconstructing an event or learning experience and will not only provide valuable insight, but also the different perspectives and feelings of everyone else in the group. These can sometimes be so different from your own that it is a real eye-opener and a way of capturing a much wider view. This sort of group reflective process is sometimes developed further into a critical incident review, when a particular event needs to be analyzed and investigated by a whole team as a means of problem solving, and is often used by the NHS and other industries. Summary: portfolios and reflections go hand in hand. Portfolios provide a place for you to plan your goals, collect evidence to see that you are reaching your goals, learn from your experiences by reflection, and actively plan. Reflection is a structured tool that allows you to learn from experience and can be used not only in portfolios but anywhere. We have looked at the definition and applications of reflection in this section and applied these to a learning situation. Portfolios are used widely in medical education and come in many different forms. Generally, they contain goals, evidence, reflective commentaries, and action plans. Portfolios can really help you be in charge of your own development, which is hugely motivating. Make sure that your portfolio is your own and review and add to it regularly to make best use of it. Reflection is a way of learning about the world. Reflection can be used as a tool for thinking about and learning from any situation. Reflection can be used to prepare for situations, questions, and answers. Hugh, my tutor, says I don't understand the difference between reflection and description, and I don't think I do really. A very common misunderstanding. Any reflective process requires description of the event to some extent as a way of anchoring and capturing what happened. However, this is just stage one of the cycle, and you need to go on to think about, evaluate, analyze, and plan around the event. Description is just the starting point of reflection. Hugh, what is the difference between the words reflective and reflexive, as I have seen both used in books? A. The adjective reflexive describes the act of being a person who reflects, e.g., the Dalai Lama is a reflexive thinker, or reflection is a reflexive practice.